Welcome to the second episode of Dream Talk, presented by Dream India, the Dawn of Dreams. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Ankit Puri. He's an alumni of Christ University and he's the founder of Voiceless India, an organization that advocates environmental issues, animal rights, and veganism. Welcome, sir. We're glad to have you here and we're looking forward to an amazing talk session with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure.
We'll begin with a small introduction of Dream India. Dream India is
Mhm.
basically a student startup that aims at providing platform to the voices of various people. Uh, People from all walks of life can come here and discuss and talk about the issues that they feel are relevant to the society. We provide them a platform to write and speak about the issues that they feel need to be addressed and the changes that need to be brought in the society. And through
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, yes, sir. And through Dream Talk, we aim at talking with people, inspiring young people whose stories can inspire us and stories can inspire hundreds of budding social entrepreneurs and can motivate them towards working for the society.
Amazing.
So, yes, sir, we'll get started. First of all, sir, we'd like to hear about the story of Voiceless India, like how it all started, like what was the triggering point for you to start this, and how does everything
Okay.
work?
Okay, so to start this, I'd have to go a couple of years ago. I mean, when I say a couple, it would be somewhere in 2014 is when I started volunteering at this animal shelter. So I'm from Delhi, and I've done my entire schooling, like my entire high school in Delhi. So when I was in around, I think, 10th grade, I started volunteering at this animal shelter in Delhi called Friendicos. And that was my first ever experience to actually encounter animals and help them in some way that I could. And that was when I actually came to know that the general people who are not, either volunteering at animal shelters or are not involved in animal rights and animal welfare in any way, they're not aware of what is actually happening when it comes to the non-human animals. I mean, on the news we hear about any kind of any crime that is happening against a human being, but we rarely hear about animals on the news. There are, of course, some cases that do get the limelight, but most cases the media does not cover, right? So the triggering point, if you ask, was actually this, that I wanted to make people aware that just like human beings go through various kinds of abuse and exploitation, so do non-human animals, and at a scale that we can't even imagine. And that's where it actually, the entire idea came into being, and I started doing workshops with school students to make them aware about what is happening with non-human animals and why we need to be kind and compassionate towards them. And then, yeah, and then after that it just grew, with different projects that we took upon. So yeah.
So how old is Voiceless India? Like, how many years before did you
So
start?
it's about 4 years. We just celebrated our fourth anniversary this year, on 28th of July. So yes, 4 years.
That means you were 17 when you started working for this cause. That's commendable.
Yeah, I mean, I started working for animal rights and animal welfare at around 14, like in terms of volunteering at shelters and things like that. But yes, I started Voiceless India when I was almost 17.
What are the challenges that you faced while, starting it, or the challenge that you still face? Like when you go out,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
when you go out and
Mhm.
form an organization, especially something that's not profit driven, what are the challenges that or the hurdles that come in the way?
Right. And the fact that you said there's something that's not profit driven, I think that's a very important point that you said. I'll come to that. So, of course, challenges keep changing from time to time, in the sense that the challenges that I had when we were starting the organization are not any more challenges. Now there are new challenges that, keep coming up. But when I started Voiceless India, the biggest challenge that I have to say was my age. And my age was a challenge, not because I felt I was too young to do things, but people felt that I was too young to do these kind of things. And for example, because a lot of our projects actually involved going to schools, talking to children, making them aware. So actually convincing a school that, a 16 or 17-year-old can actually come and address your students was actually one of the biggest challenge that I faced in the starting. And then after that, of course, challenges with regards to funds. And that's why I said, because it's not a profit driven enterprise, it's difficult sometimes to raise funds in terms of, we do have some channels of raising funds like our merchandise and, donations and things like that. But definitely funds have always been a challenge. And apart from that, now we are at this stage where we are now looking at growth. So we work in Delhi and Bangalore. We've been working in Delhi and Bangalore for the past 2.5 years. So now we are looking at growth in terms of going to other cities. So now that's another challenge in terms of getting our base in different cities to advocate for animal rights and environmental issues. So yes, challenges keep on changing, and they're never ending. But it's always great to have overcome a challenge and become stronger.
Especially the fact that you highlighted that, how people in the society often blame the youth for not being motivated enough. But the fact is, when people actually want to do something, they're not taken seriously. When young people actually feel motivated for a cause. So I read it
Mhm.
somewhere like youth is not useless, it's used less. You do not believe in them, and then you,
Right, right.
yeah, then you believe, then they,
Absolutely.
you say they're irresponsible, but when they like step up, you just call them children and not mature enough to actually like contribute
Right.
meaningfully.
Right, absolutely.
So, how about this like name? Where does this name come from? It's a beautiful name. Like if you think about it, it's like very beautiful. How what was the inspiration?
I mean the name is quite simple in its sense. It's representing the voiceless community, but I think the name just came up. I mean, I wouldn't say I put in too much of thought in the name. It was just something that really touched me in its essence, and also because it was a simple name for people to really understand. I mean, if we had a very complicated name, a lot of effort just goes into telling people what it means. But I thought having a simple name is something that is obviously appealing to people because they understand what it means. And also because, of course, voiceless represents animals and the environment, who don't have a voice, or who do have a voice, but we tend to ignore it. And India, of course, because we're based in India.
We would like to talk about something. We like love for you to share something about your personal life. Like how was your childhood? Support that your family gave you. Were they supportive? Were they not? How was your education and everything?
Okay, so I've had a relatively normal childhood. I mean, just like anyone else. I was born in Delhi. I've lived across India. I've lived a little, like a very short part of my life in the US as well. But the reason for that was because my father has had a transferring job. Now he's based in Delhi, but before he had a transferring job, and I used to have to move to different cities. But I would say that was at that time it used to feel like not a very good thing. But I would say that now it's actually, when I look back at it, I really feel that it was a good thing that I was exposed to so many cultures, so many places, so many people. I have friends in every city, almost every city that I've lived in. So yes, and then in terms of support when it comes to Voiceless India and my work in animal rights, my family has been very, very supportive. Of course, there are some instances where parents are concerned, if I'm focusing on my studies, or if I'm focusing on other things, and if I'm focusing too much on Voiceless India. But I think that was only in the starting, when they were a little concerned. But then I made an effort to actually focus on my studies as well. I did not ignore my studies. I gave it uh, top priority. And then when I used to have excess time, I used to work on Voiceless India. So I've showed that to my parents that, yes, I'm not ignoring my studies. I'm also focusing on my academics, because of course that is very important. There's no doubt about that. And yes, apart from that, my parents have been extremely supportive, whether it's been, taking me to different places. I mean, I have to say this, that when I started volunteering at Friendly Cause, the animal shelter, I was about 14, right? 14 or 15. And I obviously, at that point in time, I did not use cabs and things like that. So that shelter is approximately 30 kilometers from my house. And it used to be my parents who used to drive me every single weekend to that shelter, wait for me over there 2 hours in the car when I was doing the work, and then get me back. So of course they have been a very big support, and so has my extended family, apart from just a few people who have their own things. But yeah.
So what about like your education? You talked about prioritizing education and how important they are. What are you like?
Mhm.
What are your educational qualifications? What are you like planning in the future?
So I've done a bachelor's in business administration from Christ. So that was my undergrad that I did in finance and accountancy, which is completely different from what I'm doing at Voiceless India. But I'm also interested in that, so that's why I did BBA in finance and accountancy. And in the future, I'm planning to do something in public policy to kind of bring about change in terms of animal rights and environmental issues, also from a public policy perspective, because that's a very strong way in which we can actually bring change, because whatever said and done, we have to follow the laws and the rules of the country, and if you're able to bring about a change in that, I think there's nothing like it. So yeah.
I am a BBA finance and accountancy student at Christ, so that makes me feel like really
Oh
nice.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, which year?
I'm first semester. Like I just started college.
Wow, 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 that's amazing.
And yeah. So if you talk about, the entire concept of social entrepreneurship, which is kind of very new to India. So what according to you is an entrepreneur? Or what is the difference between an entrepreneur and social entrepreneur if we go like pretty specific?
So of course, I mean, in if I have to give it in very simple terms, of course, a very definition of an entrepreneur would be someone who takes risks and all of those things. But if I have to say what an entrepreneur is, I would just say an entrepreneur is someone who has an idea to bring about a change, in the society, whether it's a social change or some other kind of change, but it's some change, right? But what is the difference between a social entrepreneur and an entrepreneur? I would say that a social entrepreneur's objectives are society driven, as in he or she wants to bring a change in the society. That's the first objective, and then of course after that, if it's a profit driven enterprise, profit could be an objective. If it's a non-profit enterprise, profit would not be an objective. But as you rightly said that social entrepreneurship is a very new concept in India. Not many people even consider it to actually be a career. I mean, people think that it's you're just doing it as a hobby, and it can't be a career ever. But definitely there are several social entrepreneurs now that we see that they have their careers as social entrepreneurs. They're bringing a change in the society, and yet they are uh, like meeting their own needs, and meeting their family's needs as well. So yeah, and I think this needs to really grow a lot. And we are seeing it grow. We have a lot of social entrepreneurs coming up, who are trying to bring about a change. So it's really good to see that.
That's, I personally feel like the concept of social entrepreneurship needs to grow in India and like worldwide, because of the fact like there's a misconception that social entrepreneurs usually do not meet their economic needs, but that's not even
Mhm.
true. Like that's not how business works. And so apart from the economic stability, you also get that mental satisfaction of working for a good cause. And we all know the kind
Absolutely.
of stress people go through at workplace. People don't love their jobs, they feel passionless their entire life. So I feel this will provide a dual benefit. You're not only like
Mhm.
economically securing yourself, you also get a job that'll make you happy because you're working for a good cause, and what could be better than that?
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you on that. It actually gives you some sense of satisfaction also that you're bringing a change, and it is the need of the hour. We have so many social issues coming up, of course, different in different parts of the world. But everywhere, if we have social entrepreneurs coming up, taking the lead and trying to bring about a change or a little bit of difference in these social issues, making them a little better than what they are, I think that's going to bring about a huge change in the long term.
How do you associate yourself? Like, would you want to be called a social entrepreneur? Are you a social worker? What do you associate or define yourself as?
Um, I mean, there've been a lot of times when I have, attended panel discussions regarding social entrepreneurship and things like that. So yes, being a social entrepreneur is something that, I mean, I could call myself. But I would rather call myself an activist, because that's what is, that's what keeps me driven, as in, to bring about an active change in the society. So more than anything, I would call myself an activist. And then, of course, because I'm running an organization, it falls under entrepreneurship automatically. But from personally, I would say that I'm first an animal rights and environmental activist, and then anything else.
How many pets do you have? Do you have pets?
So yes, I do have companion animals at home. I have three dogs, and yes, so all three of them are of different ages. One of them is just 1 year old, while the eldest one is 13 now. So yeah.
So, what are your like hobbies, except for like Voiceless India?
I like playing badminton when I get the opportunity to. That's something that I really like. I'm very much interested in doing creative things sometimes, like, when it comes to kind of building something out of scratch. I like doing those kind of things. I When I was in college, I used to take part in a lot of Model United Nations conferences, and I feel that's a really important step that actually helped me develop myself, in terms of my confidence, in terms of my awareness. So yes, MUNs were a very big part, and I do love traveling. Although I try to keep my traveling very minimalistic, in the sense trying to create as little environmental damage as possible because of my travel. But yes, I do love traveling as well. So these are some of my hobbies.
Fact, the kind of traveling you talked about, like minimalistic and traveling, simple traveling, that's actually traveling in true sense, because that's the difference between a traveler and a tourist. The tourist is all about pomp and show and
Absolutely.
comparing and luxury, but traveling is a very deep concept. Like,
Absolutely.
so you talked about how like from the age of 14 you've been like kind of associated with social work for animals. So why this
Mhm.
cause? Like there's a lot, 14 is a tender age, you could be driven to like anything. Like you had this urge to
Mhm.
work for the society, but why specifically towards the animals?
So I've been brought up in a family where animals, or non-human animals, as I like to say, have always been given importance, in the sense that yes, till I was 19, I was not vegan, so I would not call myself an animal lover. Before that, I would say I was a dog cat lover. But yes, in my family, I've been raised to kind of be compassionate towards all creatures. And I think that was one area, as I mentioned earlier as well, I felt that that was one area which was not given too much importance. Although I have been involved in social work in other ways as well. When I was in school, I used to go and teach underprivileged children, and all those kind of things as well. But this really touched me because I felt that this is something which is not highlighted enough. It needs more voices, it needs more people working for it. And also primarily because humans have a voice, right? We can voice our if we're having any discomfort, if someone has committed a crime against us, we know what to do. We know we can approach the police, we can approach somebody for help. But non-human animals or the environment can't speak for themselves. And I felt that that is one place where I want to lend my voice to, and hence I chose animal rights and environmental issues as. Yeah.
Like you talked about veganism, as I was like reading a few days ago, people have a lot of like arguments against veganism. So like what are the challenges is like you face when you advocate veganism? Because being a
Hmm.
vegetarian and being a vegan is also different. So many
Of
people
course.
do not like welcome it when you talk about the very idea of veganism. So how do you pursue them or like try to make them understand your point?
Yeah, so before I start with answering this question, I'd like to first mention what veganism is for whoever watches this. So, veganism is basically a lifestyle in which one does not use or consume any kind of animal products. And when I say it's a lifestyle, it's not just a diet, it's also a lot of other things. Of course, diet is a big part of it, not consuming meat, dairy, honey, all of this is a big part of it. But apart from that, not wearing leather clothing, not wearing wool, not wearing fur, silk, not going to places where animals are exploited, like zoos, circuses, these kind of places. So this is also a part of veganism. And a lot of people firstly misconstrue it for just being a diet, that it's just a diet. But it's not a diet, it's an entire lifestyle that one follows to be compassionate towards animals. Now, coming to your question, which is basically about how we, try to answer people's arguments. Yes, you're absolutely right. There are innumerable amount of arguments, mostly illogical, that people tend to put forth, without any scientific base. And the best way to actually answer it is by putting facts and figures. That okay, so if someone tells you that veganism is ruining the environment, then you actually put facts and figures saying that no, it's actually very beneficial for the environment because meat and dairy are very big emitters of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So of course, facts and figures do make a difference, but a lot of times people tend to ignore facts. They turn a blind eye to facts and figures. So then in that case, using like trying to make people connected, the only reason why someone would not be vegan or not be compassionate towards animals, because what is veganism? If you have to just say it in one line, it's being kind towards animals, right? You're not using anything that comes from animals. So why wouldn't someone want to be kind towards animals? Unless that person is not in a very good mental state. If that person is sane, that person would be kind towards animals. So the only reason that a person won't be is if they're disconnected in any way, right? If they're not able to empathize enough with the suffering of a non-human animal. So what we try to do is that through our workshops, through our talks, through our projects, we try to bring in that connection. That we, of course, we cannot force anyone to go vegan, but we can at least tell you that why it's important, what is the abuse that animals go through if someone is not vegan, right? So just bringing in that small little connection is what actually helps a lot of people take up this lifestyle, because they realize that it's important to be vegan, not just for ourselves but more for the animals and for the environment.
Do you also like believe that people veganism not because they do not know enough about it? I mean, like just the way you put it forward, why would anybody not want to be compassionate to a living being? Like that's basic humanity, that's basic sense. Okay, so I personally feel like people take the easy road. I mean, veganism is tough. Avoiding dairy products, not wearing wool, silk, not going to circus, zoo. Okay, so you do you also feel that people just tend to take the easy road and then put forward invalid arguments just to justify their sense of laziness?
Of course, I think convenience is not just in terms of veganism, but generally, if someone wants to avoid any kind of moral or ethical stance, the biggest reason for them to avoid it is convenience. Even if they don't admit it, convenience is something that is always one of the top reasons why someone does not want to be ethical in any way, for that matter. So I mean, just for an example, if you see, of course, because dairy is has been continuing for so many decades now, it's available easily, while soy milk and almond milks are also now of course available in the market, but it's still maybe a little bit of effort that you have to make to actually get it. But then and then a lot of times people avoid it is because of convenience, because they want to take the easy way out. But that's what we try to tell people, that it's not always that we can take the easy way out. If the same thing is happening to us, we would want someone else to be our voice, right? And that's what we should be for animals who are going through exploitation right now.
I think you put it forward. You put forward it in just the right way. People tend to always take the convenient road as long as it does not directly affect them. If it
Absolutely.
doesn't bother them, they'll take the easy road. That's it.
Absolutely.
How has voiceless changed your life? Like, what has been the impact on your personal life?
So, to be honest, for the past 4 years, it's been one of the biggest parts of my life, because I spend huge amounts of time, doing work for like at Voiceless India. I mean, it takes up most of my day. So, I mean, it's really my life in a way. I contribute most of my time to this. And it's really not just in terms of work, but it's also impacted me personally a lot, because it's really helped me connect with compassionate people, of course, who I work with. But it's also helped me really develop my own emotional quotient. That the term that there is, right, EQ, which is the emotional quotient. I think it's so important for people to develop it. Of course, schools nowadays are now focusing on the emotional quotient, not just the intelligence quotient. And EQ is, as many studies have revealed, that EQ is even more important than your IQ. And I really feel that Voiceless India has helped me develop my EQ to a big extent, because I'm able to connect with animals and the environment much better. I'm able to really understand it to a large extent. Of course, I wouldn't say that even I'm completely there, but it's really helped me to connect better.
Yeah, like just the way you put forward how working for a good cause improves you as a person, and how EQ obviously is more important than IQ, because obviously information, if you know a lot of information, that's good, but you can still get it in books or you just Google it. It's just a Google away. But if you're not a good
Right.
person, none of it matters.
Absolutely.
How does Voiceless stand out amongst the other animal rights organizations? There are plenty of organizations that are, budding up. How does
Mhm.
Voiceless like stand out, or what is specific to Voiceless?
So, firstly, I would like to say that we are not in any way, and I honestly feel this, that no social organization is ever competing with anyone else. They're all social driven. They would always support each other, and that's what we have also seen, that we have been supported by many other animal rights organizations, and so have we supported them whenever we've got a chance. But if I have to say what is different with Voiceless India and with every animal rights organization, is their approach, right? So every organization has a different approach, in the way they advocate for a particular cause. Some may be more aggressive, some may be less aggressive. There is no right way to advocate a cause, because there are literally more than 7 billion people in the world, and it's not possible for one method to impact all of them, right? So there have to be various different methods. Voiceless India's method is more through education. We want to focus as much as we can on education, although we do a lot of other initiatives as well, which is, to reach out to the general public who are not going through education, their phase of education. But we tend to try to focus a lot on college students, school students through our workshops. We are also working on some new projects to kind of bring in animal rights as part of the education system in India, because that is so important. We have so many different kinds of social issues that are part of the education system, whether it comes to being kind towards any other person. How we have the idea of being inclusive these days in schools, right? So being inclusive towards person who's differently abled, or someone who's of a different color, or someone who's of a different gender, how we have to be inclusive towards everyone. I think we also have to include non-human animals in that inclusivity. And that's what Voiceless India is working towards, to actually bring in animal rights as a core part of the education system in India.
I just love the way how you said that we are not in competition with anyone, because that's the beauty of social work. The more organizations, the
Absolutely.
better. It's not like any profit making
Absolutely.
organization where you see, new organizations that threat. Here is
Yeah.
like the more the merrier, and you're all working towards the one cause. So that's beautiful. This work is like really commendable.
Thank you.
Where do you see yourself in like next 7 to 10 years?
I usually don't think that far ahead, but yes, we do, of course, are working on different plans. We do, of course, aim to grow to different cities. That is one of our very important, goals in the next few years, to actually have a base in different cities across India, and then, of course, across the world as well. But along with that, we're also trying, as I said, we're trying to impact the education system as much as possible, by inculcating animal rights as a core value in the education system. So we do hope that in the next few years it actually becomes a part, of the curriculums that school students and college students have to, learn. And yes, so I think these are two things that we are focusing on. One is growth in different cities, and secondly, of course, bringing animal rights as part of the education system in India.
Then I hope we like that happens before 10 years. We'll like really,
Thank
really
you. I
hope,
hope
because
so too.
that let's just change a lot, and that's the need of the hour.
It is.
You were invited to Christ as a panelist on a panel discussion on social entrepreneurship. So, how was the experience being invited to your own college?
It was truly an amazing experience, because I mean, I was in college when I was invited to my own college. I mean, I was studying. I was in my third year, I think the first semester of my third year. And I mean, it was really, I really felt the fact that my own university was actually encouraging my work, and not just regarding that conference, but throughout. Since my teachers and, well, I mean, my professors, the HOD, everyone got aware of the work that we do at Voices India. I think they've supported us unconditionally. Sometimes when I have to take a leave, or sometimes, I mean, I remember I had to fly down to Delhi for a conference that I had attended, a couple of years ago. And, I got leave from college, which is literally, you wouldn't ever expect Christ to give you leave. But, the professors, the HOD of DPS has been extremely supportive in that sense, giving leaves or helping out with any kind of work, if I needed to. Sometimes extending deadlines. I mean, some of the professors have also, accommodated extending deadlines if there's too much work that I have to do. So, yeah, so of course, the panel discussion that I had attended was again one of those, motivating factors, that my own university was appreciating the work. More than me being part of the panel and talking about social entrepreneurship, I really felt that the fact that Christ was bringing a platform where, different social entrepreneurs could come together and speak, whichever department it was, regardless of that. But the fact that they were bringing a platform and focusing on social entrepreneurship, which is such an important yet a very new thing that is coming, I really felt that that's very progressive of Christ to do. And yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah, it's only been a semester, but like Christ extending deadlines and granting leaves is a miracle. So yeah, indeed, they were very supportive, which makes me like really happy because this kind of cause requires support, deserves support. That's it. Like if you work for something like this, you need to like you should have support. Also, you have a radio show called A Voice for the Voiceless. Yeah, how did that happen and how is it going on? How has the experience been?
So now it's not going on. The first season already got over. So it was somewhere in February and March, February, March, and April that we did our first season. And it was just by chance that I got it. I had gone for an interview, like my own interview, to that particular radio channel, Radioactive 90.4 CR, for one of our initiatives that we were doing, which was, I think, the Reflective Caller Drive. So I had gone there for an interview, and after the interview, the RJ who was interviewing me asked me if I would like to, be an RJ at their show, at their radio channel, and do a show on animal rights. And I was just elated with that opportunity, because there's nothing like it if you're able to impact so many people, through your work. And of course, the radio channel was giving a very big reach, in terms of veganism and animal rights, to make people aware of this. So it really went well. We brought in amazing guests. Some, of course, most of them who I know, who I've worked with. Some of them were like close friends as well. So it was really nice to have them on the show, because everyone shared their experience. Most of them were, of course, from the field of animal rights, and some of them were from the field of environmental sustainability. And everyone shared the work that they are doing in their respective fields, the kind of change that they are bringing. And I really think that that show kind of brought another voice, a very strong voice to of animal rights in Bangalore. So yeah.
What's your take on the current state of animal rights and animal protection in India? Like, is there something that you really appreciate, or there's something that you feel like should be reformed at the earliest?
Mhm. So I would definitely say that something that I really appreciate about animal rights in India is that we have one of the most comprehensive animal rights laws in the entire world. When I say comprehensive, I don't mean that they're the most stringent or the strongest, but what I mean to say is that they cover all bases, right? So they cover all kinds of animal cruelty, whether it's in terms of wildlife exploitation, or whether it's in terms of animals like dogs and cats, or other animals being abused. So it really covers all kinds of cruelty. But what needs to be reformed is, firstly, of course, the fact that the penalties that people have to pay if they commit a crime against an animal are extremely low. For example, if someone kills a dog on the road, or drives over a dog on the road, the maximum penalty that a first time offender will have to pay is just 50 rupees, which is negligible. There is literally, someone can just pay 50 rupees and just get out, or not even go to jail for that matter. So obviously that needs to change, and this is and the reason for that is that this particular law came into being in 1960, which is the Prevention of the Cruelty to Animals Act, the PCA Act, came into being in 1960, and till now, till 2020, it has not changed. They've not amended it even one bit. So the same penalties that were there in 1960 are even today, right? So of course today the value of 50 rupees is nothing. So there definitely that needs to change. And apart from that, a lot of other things, like for example, the laws right now are not cognizable, which means that the police requires a warrant or a court order to actually start an investigation when there's an animal cruelty instance. Not all of them, but a lot of important ones are not cognizable, which need to become cognizable, so that the police has more power, to actually do something when there's an animal cruelty incident reported to them, because they have to wait for so long to get a warrant, to get a court order. Until that time, such cases just fizzle out. So these are some things that need to change. And I mean, we are way beyond the time that it should have changed, but of course never late. We have to change it now. Yes.
Has to be a review because, like you said, the law has not been changed since 1960. I didn't know of it, and that's quite surprising because how you said the value of money and the fact that crime in general has gone up multifold. People,
Mhm.
it's safe to say that people were a lot more compassionate and caring back then. So today there needs to be a lot more strictness.
Of
So
course. I mean, yeah, I mean, with an increase in the population as well, there are more people now. So, of course, there will be more crime. But also, of course, I mean, I don't know if people were compassionate back then or anything like that. I would definitely say that because of the media and things like that, things have now started to come up. Things have started to be reported more than there were, in 1960 and, in that time, because there wasn't so much of exposure. But definitely I think, I mean, as you said, that 50 rupees is literally nothing, and also because of the value for money obviously decreases. So yes, it has to change.
now we are moving towards the fun part of the talk session. We're going to play rapid fire.
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions and you'll
Okay.
have to answer them as fast as you can, okay? You cannot think. Whatever
I'll
comes to your
try.
mind, the first thing that comes to your mind, you'll have to say it. Okay, so should
Okay,
we
I'll try
start?
my best.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the first question, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? You cannot think.
I mean, I just have this tendency to think over a lot. But yeah, if I had one superpower, I would say I want like in just one click, I can just make the entire world peaceful and be compassionate towards animals. If I could do that, unfortunately, I can't. But yeah.
And okay, tell us three things that are on your bucket list.
Okay, so the first thing is that I want to travel to Tokyo, which is, I don't know, it's just on my mind. So I just want to travel to Tokyo. The second thing would be that I want Voiceless India to be a part of, affiliated to the United Nations, which we are working on, and we hope to be affiliated with the UN in soon. And the third thing would be that I want to open a shelter for all kinds of non-human animals, not just dogs and cats, but all kinds of non-human animals, including chickens, pigs, cows, goats, all other kinds of animals as well. So yes, that's also on my bucket list.
I just hope you check out all the items on your bucket list as soon as possible and you literally get all that you've ever wanted. Because all of
Thanks.
your wishes are somewhat, related to betterment of the society and for the animals. So that's just so nice to hear, coming across such a person who's even if I ask you about a personal wish, you talk about a social cause, that's commendable. That's just beautiful.
Thank you so much.
What is the most embarrassing experience you've ever had?
Okay, I don't know if I should say this, but a lot of people saw it, so I will say this. So this happened in college. I think I was going to get to receive an award on the stage or something. I was going on the stage for something, and I tripped on the stairs, and it was literally the entire auditorium that was watching. And I think that was one of my very embarrassing moments, because I'm very nervous when I'm not nervous in terms of talking to a large audience, but I'm very nervous when, I'm getting an award or something like that. So I'm always, fearing that I might just trip when I'm going, and it happened that particular time. And it was extremely embarrassing.
What's your favorite fictional character?
My favorite fictional character, a lot of people not don't know this, but Doraemon. I used to love Doraemon, and primarily because of the gadgets that he has. I mean, in my childhood, Doraemon was my most favorite cartoon. If I did have the opportunity and the time, I would still be watching it and binge watching it. But yeah, so yes, Doraemon is my favorite cartoon or fictional character.
Okay, the next question. If your biopic was made, which actor would you like to play you?
Okay, now that is, I don't know if that would ever happen. But if I
That
had
may happen,
someone to
okay?
play
And
me,
we never know. The way you're going on, I really hope that happens.
thank you so much. It means a lot. But if someone had to play me, I would say, I mean, of course, till that time, Leonardo DiCaprio would be really old. But if it was possible, I would like him to play me, because he's also a very, very aware person in terms of environmental issues and things like that. So maybe him, yeah.
He always uses the limelight and attention he gets to address environmental issues, which is great, which is very,
Which is
very
great.
appreciable. Okay, what
Mhm.
is the one thing that annoys you the most?
I would say what annoys me is people's lack of understanding their hypocrisy. So like, I mean, I do understand that, even for about 18 years of my life, I was hypocritical, calling myself an animal lover, but still, eating dairy and things like that. But at least even in that some time before that, at least I did recognize that hypocrisy and be aware of it. But what annoys me is when people know that they are being hypocritical, but they just don't want to agree to it. I mean, it's okay, you want to take some time to change, but at least agree to the fact that there's something wrong happening. Don't live in denial. I think denial would be the thing that annoys me. When people are in denial of what's happening, that is something that annoys me.
You to first change, you need to at least own up to your mistakes. If you never accept them, how will you ever
Absolutely.
change? How many?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, how many books have you read so far?
Okay, I'm not a very avid reader. I like to read nonfiction, whenever I get the opportunity to. But I may have read about, I mean, in my entire lifetime, I may have read about, I don't know, 100 books, 80, 100 books. I don't know.
That's nice. And when you say you're not an avid reader, I thought it'll be a low number, but that's pretty nice.
Okay.
Uh, if you could talk to the Prime Minister, what would you talk about?
Oh, I would definitely talk about amending the animal rights laws in the country. And what I really would like to see is, which I don't know if it's in the short term, but I would definitely expect this to come up in the long term, is to have an animal rights task force, just like we have, like a cyber cell, which only handles digital or cyber related crimes. We need to have a different entire task force that only handles crimes against non-human animals, because just like we have the Green Tribunal, which handles environmental problems. Similarly, we need an animal rights task force which would only focus on non-human animal cases. And I think that would be the first thing on my list that I would talk to the Prime Minister about.
If you could be any nationality, which would it be?
Oh, I would hands down choose to be an Indian. I would never trade this with anything else. Not just because I'm just blindly patriotic to the country. It's not that. I always weigh the costs and benefits. And I think being Indian is something that I'm very comfortable with. Of course, I love visiting all other countries. I mean, if I have to live in another country for a few years, I would love that as well. But I really feel India is a place which needs a lot of change, a lot of social change. And if I can be here, be a citizen, and bring about that change, I mean, I would love to. Because if I'm a citizen of the US, or if I'm a citizen of some Scandinavian country, the change that is required there is not. I mean, of course, even they do require change, but it's not as much as India requires. I would love to, be here and try to do my bit.
Great. And before asking, I knew you would say Indian. Like after talking, I knew you would like talk about living here and like improving things here rather than just leaving and being another nationality. Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
I would say compassionate now, although there's obviously scope for being more compassionate, but compassionate. Um, it's so difficult.
Not think this much.
um, Focused for most part of it, and having a very bad sense of direction, if that makes any sense. I mean, I'm the worst person when it comes to figuring out roads and ways, although I do drive, and still it's the last thing that I would remember how to go to. Even the place that I visit every single day, I would still need Google Maps and open it and, check what's the road. So yeah, I would describe myself in those 3 words.
If you like necessarily had to have a tattoo, what would it be?
Again, I would say something about veganism or animal rights, something that really shows people, my stance and why I am vegan. I would say, yeah, that would be a tattoo, but I'm not that much in for tattoos. So,
But yeah, that just shows how passionate you are about the entire cause because having a tattoo is like living with it and like making it a part of your body. And when you choose to address something
right.
as that part of yourself, that just shows how passionate and concerned and focused you are about that cause. Okay, if you could trade lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
For a day. I would say if I had to trade lives, I would say maybe with the current prime president of the United States, Donald Trump. I would really want to know what goes on in his mind, and what makes him do the things that he does. So yeah, I would really love to trade lives with him for a day, and maybe also better the US in that one day than what he has done in the last so many years. So yeah.
His time is now ended, so we can just hope for better now.
Yeah, I hope so.
What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is this quote that is, I don't know by whom, but it says something like, one's soul is unawakened until he or she has loved an animal. I think that's something that resonates with me a lot, because it happened for me when I started working for animal rights. That's the time when I really realized that, how important it is to be compassionate. So yeah, that is something. I don't know who has said it. Whoever has said it, kudos to that person. But I really resonate with it.
Okay, the last question. What is the compliment you get the most?
I would say one compliment that I get the most is, and something that I really value also. I mean, something that's not frivolous, but something that I really value is the fact that a lot of people say that, yes, I am an activist, of course, but I am a calm activist. I mean, I'm not aggressive, nor am I, of course, passive, because, of course, as an activist, I can't be passive, but I'm able to put my point across in a sensible manner, not being emotionally too attached to it all the time. So I think that's a compliment that I really cherish, because I really try my best to actually be as calm as possible when I'm doing any kind of work with animal rights, because I know that it's not always the best thing to be aggressive and put your stance, because the other person would be repulsed by that. So yeah, this is something that I really value, and yes.
We like come to the end of a rapid fire round. So yeah, so before ending with the session, was this one message you'll give to our viewers and whoever watches this video?
I would say the first thing that I would obviously say is that, if you are someone who's in college, if you're someone who's in school, or I mean, even someone who's, working somewhere already, I think please consider, if you have a passion for any cause, not just animal rights and environmental issues, but any cause for that matter, please do, consider doing something in that cause. Not, it's not just important to be passionate, it's also important to translate that passion into action, because until that is done, there will be no change. So we have to take change in our own hands, and try to bring forward some change, whether it's volunteering at an organization, not necessarily starting your own organization, but even volunteering at an organization, working with a social organization. I think that's extremely important. And secondly, I would definitely say that if you're watching this and you're not vegan, I think you definitely need to consider going vegan, because that is not just important for animals, but it's also important for the environment, which indirectly affects all of us, right? I mean, the kind of the pollution, I'm in Delhi right now, and the kind of pollution that I see outside, it's horrible. It's something that, I mean, a recent report came out that said that people who are living in Delhi have a shorter lifespan of 10 years. So if someone would die at the age of 80, they would actually die now at the age of 70 because of the air pollution. So these are things that need to be concerned about. Not just Delhi, every city in India and outside, is really, really polluted. The environment is, taking a toll on ourselves. And I think being vegan is the smallest change that can bring in the biggest effect onto the world right now. So please do consider researching about veganism first, and then making the switch.
With this, we come to the end of episode 2 of Dream Talk. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We are beyond grateful that you agreed to have this talk with us, and we hope the entire team of Dream India and Dream Talk hopes that the world resonates with your cause and that Voiceless India reaches across the globe and people recognize the importance of what you're trying to convey. People become compassionate towards animal and considerate towards the environment. We just hope for the best. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for
Thank
tonight.
you so much. Thank you so much. And I also want to say one more thing, which is that I want to, appreciate you all who are doing this work in bringing out voices and bringing out change in the way that you are. I know a lot of you are first year students of Christ, and I don't know if outside Christ, but I know some of you are from Christ and first year students and doing such amazing work. I just want to firstly congratulate you on doing this, and say that it's really, really nice. And I really hope that you grow in the future as well. So, and thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir. It means a lot, and the pleasure was all ours. Thank you. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you so much.